The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, and Diana Grayson watched the bride's mother storm out of the ballroom for the third time that evening, leaving her alone in 20,000 square feet of candlelit emptiness with a cleanup list longer than her arm. Diana kicked off her heels and let them clatter somewhere behind the dessert table, her aching feet meeting cool marble with a sigh of relief that echoed in the cavernous space. The rehearsal had run 4 hours over schedule. The actual wedding planner, her boss Melanie, had conveniently developed a migraine 2 hours in and vanished, leaving Diana to manage the chaos of warring in-laws, a groom who kept forgetting which side of the altar to stand on, and a string quartet that had packed up in a huff when someone criticized their tempo. Diana was 24 years old, had a degree in hospitality management she was still paying off, and was seriously reconsidering every life choice that had led her to this Baroque nightmare of a venue at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. The Ashworth Estate Ballroom was admittedly stunning, even if it came with the kind of rental price tag that made her monthly salary look like pocket change. Cream and gold wallpaper rose to a ceiling painted with fading frescoes of angels and clouds. 3 massive crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the polished floor. And dominating the eastern wall, positioned between 2 towering windows draped in burgundy velvet, stood an antique mirror that had to be 12 feet tall, framed in ornate silver that had tarnished to a dark patina in the corners. Diana had spent half the rehearsal catching glimpses of herself in that mirror, looking progressively more disheveled as the evening wore on. Now, her dark hair had escaped its professional bun entirely, falling in waves past her shoulders. Her white blouse had come untucked from her black pencil skirt. She looked, she thought, exactly like someone who had just survived a small, elegant war. The cleanup could wait until morning. Melanie could handle it herself for once, considering she collected 80% of their fees while Diana did 90% of the work. Diana walked to the vintage sound system they'd set up near the windows and scrolled through the playlist they'd prepared for tomorrow's reception. Love songs, mostly. The kind of soaring, romantic pieces that made people believe in happy endings. She selected one at random and let the opening notes of an old waltz fill the ballroom, the kind of music that belonged to a different century, when people wore ball gowns and gloves and knew how to dance properly instead of just swaying in circles. The melody was achingly beautiful, strings and piano weaving together in something that felt like longing and hope mixed into 3/4 time. Diana stood in the center of the empty ballroom and laughed at herself, at the absurdity of it all. Tomorrow this space would be full of 200 guests watching 2 people promise forever to each other, and she would be in the background, making sure the caterers didn't overcook the salmon and the photographer didn't miss the cake cutting. She would smile and coordinate and fix problems, and then she would go home alone to her studio apartment and eat leftover takeout while watching other people's happiness on social media. The music swelled, and something in Diana's chest cracked open just a little. She was so tired of being on the outside, so tired of facilitating other people's love stories while her own life remained stubbornly, persistently solitary. She'd had relationships, of course, brief ones, brief. They always ended the same way, with men telling her she was too focused on work, too independent, too something. She'd stopped trying 6 months ago and told herself she was fine with it. But she wasn't fine. Standing in this ballroom full of evidence of tomorrow's joy, she felt the loneliness like a physical weight. Diana raised her arms into dance position, one hand extended as if someone held it, the other resting on an invisible shoulder. She knew how to waltz. Her grandmother had taught her when she was 7, in the living room of the old house that was long since sold, before the cancer took her and left Diana with only fragments of memory and a box of photographs. She began to move, following the music, eyes closed, letting herself imagine for just a moment that someone was there. Someone who looked at her like she mattered. Someone who chose her. The fantasy was pathetic, and she knew it, but the ballroom was empty, and her defenses were down, and she was so tired of being strong and practical and alone. Diana danced with her invisible partner and let herself feel everything she usually kept locked away. The want, the hope, the fear that maybe she would always be on the outside looking in, that maybe there was something fundamentally wrong with her that kept love at arm's length. Tears pricked at her eyes, and she didn't bother to stop them. The mirror reflected her solitary figure, spinning slowly across the marble floor. And then, The reflection moved wrong. Diana's eyes snapped open. In the mirror, she saw herself, still in dance position. But the space beside her reflection was no longer empty. A figure stood there, tall and pale, one hand extended toward her mirror self. She spun to look at the actual ballroom, but there was nothing there, just empty air where the figure should be. When she looked back at the mirror, the figure had moved closer to her reflection. He was beautiful in a way that seemed almost unnatural, all sharp, elegant lines and aristocratic features. White hair fell past his shoulders, contrasting starkly with skin so pale it seemed to glow in the candlelight. He wore black formal clothing that looked centuries out of date, a long coat with silver buttons, a high-collared shirt, boots that rose to his knees. His eyes, even in reflection, were startling, deep crimson, the color of wine or blood. Diana stood frozen, her heart hammering. She should run, she should scream, she should do anything except stare at the impossible figure in the mirror who was now offering his hand to her reflection, his expression intent and hungry and full of something that looked almost like wonder. The music continued its sweeping waltz. Her reflection, moving without her, reached out and placed her hand in his. The mirror's surface rippled like water, and the Vampire King stepped through. He was even more overwhelming in 3 dimensions, somehow occupying space in a way that made the enormous ballroom feel small. Tall, easily 6.5 feet, with that inhuman pallor and hair like starlight. His crimson eyes fixed on Diana with an intensity that pinned her in place more effectively than fear could. Up close, she could see details the reflection had missed. The silver embroidery on his coat collar, the antique rings on his long fingers, the way he moved with a predator's fluid grace. He stopped 2 feet away from her and executed a bow that belonged in a royal court. When he straightened, his expression was complicated, cautious, yearning, and beneath it all, deeply sad. "Forgive the intrusion," he said, and his voice was like smoke and velvet, carrying an accent Diana couldn't place. "It has been 317 years since anyone danced before that mirror with a truly open heart. I could not resist the pull of it." Diana's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Her brain was trying to process what was happening and failing spectacularly. Vampires weren't real. Mirrors didn't work that way. This was stress-induced hallucination or carbon monoxide poisoning, or she'd fallen and hit her head on the marble. But he was standing there, solid and real, watching her with those unsettling red eyes. "You're not screaming," he observed. "Most would scream." "I'm in shock," Diana heard herself say. Her voice came out surprisingly steady. "Give me a minute, and I'm sure the screaming will start." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. "Fair enough. I am Percival Thornwell, once king of the northern vampire courts. Currently a prisoner, though you seem to have temporarily freed me." He glanced down at his hands, as if surprised to find them corporeal. I had forgotten what it felt like to truly stand in the world. "Diana Grayson," she replied automatically, because apparently her social conditioning was stronger than her survival instinct. "Wedding planner's assistant, currently having a nervous breakdown. You are handling it remarkably well for a breakdown." "I'm very professional." The absurdity of the statement hit her and she laughed, slightly hysterical. "I'm having a conversation with a vampire who just walked out of a mirror. Professional is probably not the right word." Percival's expression softened slightly. "You freed me with your dance, your loneliness, your longing, your complete honesty of feeling. The curse requires an open heart. You see, someone dancing with no artifice, no performance, just genuine emotion." He took a step closer and Diana's breath caught. "Cynics and liars never manage it, but you danced like your heart was breaking, and the mirror could not resist the pull." "Curse," Diana repeated faintly. "You're cursed. Of course you are. Because vampires and mirrors and impossible things are apparently real, so why not add curses to the list?" "I am sorry," Percival said, and he sounded like he meant it. "This must be overwhelming. I can return to the mirror if my presence frightens you." "No." The word came out sharper than Diana intended. She didn't understand the desperation she felt at the thought of him disappearing back into the glass. "No, I just need a minute to adjust my entire understanding of reality. Standard Friday night activity." This time he did smile, a real one that transformed his face from austere to devastating. "You have a remarkable spirit, Diana Grayson." She looked at him, really looked, and saw past the supernatural terror to the person beneath. There was something in his eyes that she recognized, the same loneliness that had driven her to dance alone in an empty ballroom, the same exhausted hope that maybe somehow things could be different. "The music is still playing," Percival said quietly, "and I have not danced with a real partner in longer than you have been alive. May I?" He extended his hand, palm up, in an invitation that was somehow both courtly and vulnerable. Diana thought about all the reasons this was insane. She thought about running, calling the police, checking herself into a hospital. She thought about her safe, lonely, ordinary life waiting outside this ballroom. Then she placed her hand in his. His skin was cool but not cold, his grip gentle but certain. His other hand settled at her waist, and Diana rested hers on his shoulder, feeling the solid reality of him beneath the antique fabric of his coat. They were standing too close by modern standards, but it felt right for the waltz still spinning through the ballroom. Percival led her into the dance and Diana followed, and it was nothing like dancing with an imagined partner. He moved like water, like wind, like something that had been doing this since before she was born because he had. He guided her across the marble floor with absolute confidence, and Diana found herself moving in ways she hadn't known she could, spinning and gliding as if the music had taken physical form and was lifting them both. "You dance well," he murmured. "My grandmother taught me. A lifetime ago." "Mine taught me also, though many lifetimes ago." His expression turned distant. "She said a king should be able to dance at his own coronation ball. I was 17 and thought myself too important for such frivolity. She insisted." "Were you?" Diana asked. "Too important?" "No one is too important to dance," Percival said. "It took me 200 years to understand that she was teaching me humility, connection, the ability to meet another person as an equal, at least for the length of a song." His eyes focused back on Diana. "I wish I had told her she was right." The song was ending, strings and piano winding down to the final notes. Diana felt panic flutter in her chest at the thought of letting go, of this impossible moment finishing, but Percival held her through the last chord and into the silence that followed. "Thank you," he said softly. "You cannot know what this means. To touch something real. To remember what it feels like to exist outside of reflection and memory." "How long have you been trapped in there?" "Since 1708. 317 years of watching the world through glass, unable to touch or speak or do anything but observe." His jaw tightened. "A fitting punishment, I was told, to see everything and be able to affect nothing." "What did you do to deserve that?" "I trusted the wrong person." Percival's expression shuddered, pain and anger warring across his features. "I fell in love with a woman who saw only my power and my position. She spoke words of devotion while plotting with my enemies. When I was at my most vulnerable, she performed the binding that trapped me in the mirror you see behind us. She became queen in my place and ruled until my courts tore themselves apart without a true king to hold them together. I watched it all happen, helpless, screaming against glass that no one could hear through." Diana's heart clenched at the raw hurt in his voice. "That's horrible. I'm so sorry." "It was a very long time ago. The courts are gone now, dissolved into feuding houses. The woman who betrayed me is centuries dead. And I remain, a ghost in a mirror, waiting for someone honest enough to accidentally set me free." He looked at Diana with an expression that made her feel exposed and seen in equal measure. "Until tonight. Until you." "But you're still trapped," Diana said, understanding clicking into place. "You said temporarily freed. You have to go back." "At dawn. When the sun rises, the curse pulls me back into the mirror until the next time someone dances before it with an unguarded heart." Percival glanced toward the windows, where the darkness outside was still absolute. "I have perhaps 6 hours in the real world, a gift I did not expect to receive again." "That's not enough time." "It is infinitely more than I had yesterday." Diana stepped back from him, her mind racing. "There has to be a way to break the curse completely. Curses can be broken, right? That's how it works in every story I've ever heard." Percival looked at her with something that might have been hope trying to break through centuries of resignation. "In theory, yes. The curse was built on betrayal, on my misplaced trust being used as a weapon against me. To break it would require the opposite, trust freely given and accepted with no deception involved. But you see the problem. You can't trust anyone, Diana said quietly, not after what she did to you. I have spent 3 centuries analyzing my failure, cataloging every sign I missed, every lie I believed. I thought I was wise, discerning. I thought I could see through deception. His hands clenched into fists. I was a fool. And the cost of my foolishness was everything I had built, everyone who depended on me, trapped behind glass while my kingdom fell to pieces. So you're stuck, Diana said, because the cure requires the one thing you can't do anymore. Yes. The word was heavy with defeat. I emerge sometimes when someone dances as you did. It has happened perhaps a dozen times in 300 years. I walk free for hours or days, depending on the strength of the opening. But I always return to the mirror, and I always will, unless I can learn to trust again, which seems rather like asking a burn victim to thrust their hand back into fire. Diana looked at the mirror, at its ornate silver frame and dark glass that now showed only normal reflections. What would it take to break the curse? Someone would need to love me, truly and without ulterior motive, and I would need to believe them enough to accept that love without question or defense, to make myself vulnerable again. Percival's laugh was bitter. The woman who cursed me knew exactly what she was doing. She did not just trap my body, she trapped my ability to ever escape. The ballroom felt colder. Diana wrapped her arms around herself, thinking about loneliness and trust and the ways people could damage each other. She thought about her own safe distance from relationships, her own walls built from smaller hurts than what Percival had endured. 6 hours, she said. You have 6 hours right now. Do you want to spend them talking about your curse, or would you rather do something else? Percival blinked at her, clearly not expecting the question. What did you have in mind? I don't know. What do you want to do? What have you been watching people do through that mirror for 300 years that you wanted to try? He considered this, expression shifting from surprised to thoughtful to something almost boyish. There is a device in the corner that has been here for the past 2 months. People touch it and music emerges. I have wanted very badly to touch it myself. Diana couldn't help but laugh. You want to play with the sound system? Is that what it is called? A sound system? Yes. Come on, I'll show you. She took his hand without thinking about it and led him across the ballroom. His fingers were cool in hers, but his grip was solid, real, present. Diana showed him the tablet interface, the speakers, how to scroll through the playlist and select different songs. Percival touched the screen with careful fascination, watching songs appear and disappear at his command. Remarkable, he murmured. In my time, if you wanted music, you needed musicians. An orchestra, a quartet, or at minimum a skilled player and their instrument. Now you carry thousands of songs in a device smaller than a book. Wait until I tell you about the internet, Diana said. Actually, we probably don't have time for me to explain the internet. It would take all 6 hours and you still wouldn't understand it. Percival selected a song at random and a modern pop ballad filled the ballroom, incongruous and cheerful. He looked delighted. This sounds nothing like the music I remember, but I like it. They spent the next hour exploring the ballroom like children in a playground. Diana showed him how the electric lights worked, how the temperature controls could make the room warmer or cooler, how the catering refrigerator in the back room hummed with cold preservation. Percival examined everything with intense curiosity, asking questions about technology and history and how the world had changed. He told her about his life before the curse, about ruling vampire courts that operated in the shadows of human kingdoms, maintaining peace between houses that each commanded their own territories and powers. He spoke of politics and intrigue, of balls that lasted for days and blood oaths that bound vampires to their word. He described a world that sounded like fantasy to Diana, full of impossible things that he made sound normal. "Do you miss it?" she asked. They were sitting on the floor near the windows now, Diana's back against the wall and Percival beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "Being king? I miss mattering," Percival said quietly. "I miss having purpose. When I ruled, I could make decisions that affected thousands of lives. I could negotiate treaties, prevent wars, protect those weaker than myself. Now I am a ghost. The vampire houses have new leaders, new structures. If I could emerge permanently, I would be an anachronism, a relic of a dead system. You matter now, Diana said. You're here. You're real. For 4 more hours. Then we should make them count. Percival turned to look at her, his crimson eyes searching her face. Why are you being kind to me? You owe me nothing. I'm a stranger, a monster, something that should not exist. You're not a monster, Diana said firmly. You're just a person who got hurt and trapped and isolated. I understand that. Do you? She thought about her studio apartment, her lonely dinners, her careful distance from anything that might hurt her. Maybe not on your scale, but I know what it feels like to be on the outside, to watch other people connect while you stay separate, to build walls because walls are safer than windows. Percival's expression softened. You seemed very alone when you were dancing, before I emerged. I am alone, by choice. Mostly. It's easier. Easier than what? Than trying and failing, than hoping and being disappointed. Diana pulled her knees up to her chest. I'm good at my job. I'm good at making other people's special days perfect. I'm good at being reliable and professional and solving problems. I'm just not good at the rest of it. I do not believe that. You don't know me. I know you danced with your whole heart even though you thought no one was watching. I know you have been kind to a vampire who appeared from a mirror instead of running or calling for help. I know you were trying to help me when you could have simply let me vanish at dawn without a second thought. Percival shifted closer, his coat brushing against her arm. Those are not the actions of someone who is bad at connection. Those are the actions of someone who is afraid of it. Diana felt the truth of his words like a struck chord. Maybe fear and inability are the same thing. They are not. Fear can be overcome. Inability is permanent. His hand moved to cover hers where it rested on her knee. I have 4 hours left in the world. I would like to spend them getting to know you, if you would permit it, not because you freed me or because I am grateful, but because I find you genuinely fascinating and I want to understand how you think. Heat spread from where his hand touched hers. Diana looked at their joined fingers, pale on tan, and felt something shift in her chest. Okay, but fair's fair. I get to ask you questions too. They talked as the night deepened outside the windows. Diana learned that Percival had been turned into a vampire at 23 by a king who needed an heir and saw potential in a minor nobleman's son. He described the transformation as agonizing and transcendent, dying and being reborn into something faster, stronger, and eternally hungry. He told her about learning to control the bloodlust, about the ethics of feeding, and the strict laws vampire courts maintain to prevent exposure. We were not mindless killers, he explained. We could not afford to be. Humans outnumbered us 10,000 to 1. If we had been the monsters of legend, killing indiscriminately, humanity would have hunted us to extinction. So, we developed rules. Take only what you need. Never kill. Keep humans unaware. Violate these laws and face execution from your own kind. Did it work? Mostly. There were always rogues who thought themselves above the law. We dealt with them harshly. Percival's expression darkened. I personally executed 17 vampires during my reign for killing humans. It was never easy, but it was necessary. Diana asked about his family, his past, what he remembered of being human. Percival spoke of a mother who died when he was young, a father who was distant and cold, a grandmother who raised him with love and strictness in equal measure. He had been alone even before becoming a vampire, searching for belonging in a world that felt too small for what he wanted from it. And then you became king and had purpose, Diana said. Yes, for nearly a century, long enough that I thought I understood how to lead, how to judge character, long enough to become arrogant. His hand tightened on hers. She was beautiful and clever and seemed to genuinely care about the burden of leadership I carried. She listened to my concerns, offered counsel, shared my bed. I thought she loved me. I thought I loved her. I thought I had finally found someone who saw me as more than just my crown. What was her name? Katerina. She was turned young, barely 20, by a house that specialized in seduction and manipulation. I did not know that when I met her. I did not know that her entire house had been plotting to take control of my courts for decades. I saw only what she wanted me to see. Percival's voice went flat, emotionless. The night she cursed me, she told me she had never loved me, that I had been a mark, a target, nothing more. She laughed while I screamed from inside the mirror. Diana squeezed his hand. I'm sorry. That's cruel beyond words. It was effective. By the time my closest advisors realized what had happened, she had consolidated power. Those loyal to me were killed or driven out, and I could only watch. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of centuries of pain hanging in the air between them. What about you? Percival asked eventually. What happened to make you so afraid of connection? Diana almost deflected, almost changed the subject, but he had been honest with her, painfully so. She owed him the same. Nothing as dramatic as your story, just a series of small failures. My parents divorced when I was 12, both remarried quickly, both started new families. I became the kid from the first marriage who didn't quite fit in either household. Then my grandmother died when I was 15, and she had been the one person who made me feel like I mattered unconditionally. After that, I just started pulling back, making myself smaller, less needy, being the person who didn't require much. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it works. If you don't ask for anything, people can't disappoint you. You also cannot receive anything, Percival pointed out. You trade safety for emptiness. Says the vampire who has been trapped in a mirror for 300 years rather than risk trusting someone. He laughed, surprising both of them. Fair point. We are quite a pair of damaged creatures, are we not? Absolutely pathetic, Diana agreed, but she was smiling. Percival shifted to face her more fully, his expression serious. I need to tell you something. Dawn is perhaps 2 hours away. When the sun rises, I will be pulled back into the mirror. But before that happens, I want you to know that this night has meant more to me than you can possibly understand. You gave me a gift, not just freedom, but companionship, kindness. You saw me as a person rather than a monster or a myth. You are a person, Diana said. I am a vampire who has been trapped in glass for longer than your country has existed. Most people would run screaming. I'm not most people. No, Percival said softly. You are absolutely not. He reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his cool fingers brushing her cheek. Diana Grayson, may I kiss you? I realize this is forward and presumptuous, but I have 2 hours left and I do not want to spend them wondering what if. Diana's breath caught. Every reasonable part of her brain was screaming warnings. She had known this vampire for barely 4 hours. This was insane. This was impossible. This was going to end with him vanishing into a mirror at sunrise and her alone again. But she had been safe and reasonable and careful for so long, and it had left her dancing alone in empty ballrooms with imaginary partners. Yes, she whispered. Percival kissed her like she was precious, one hand cradling her face and the other sliding into her hair. His lips were cool but soft, moving against hers with careful intensity. Diana made a small sound and kissed him back, her hands fisting in his coat to pull him closer. The kiss deepened, and she could feel his control, the leashed power in him held back so he wouldn't hurt her. It made her feel safe and desired in equal measure. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Percival rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since you placed your hand in mine for the dance. Why didn't you? I thought you might strike me. Diana laughed breathlessly. I still might. This is crazy. You're a vampire. You're cursed. You're going to disappear in 2 hours. Yes to all of those facts. I'm going to be heartbroken. I'm already heartbroken, Percival said. I found something real and true, and I have 2 hours to exist within it before returning to my glass prison. But I cannot regret this. I would rather have this pain than have never touched you at all. Diana kissed him again, harder this time, trying to pour everything she felt into the press of lips and the slide of tongue. Percival responded in kind, his careful control slipping enough that she could feel the desperate edge of his want. They ended up tangled together on the ballroom floor, kissing like teenagers, touching with increasing boldness as the minutes ticked past. Come back tomorrow, Diana said between kisses. I'll dance again. I'll open my heart again. You can come out. Percival pulled back enough to meet her eyes. For a few hours, and then I return. Diana, I cannot ask you to spend your life dancing in front of mirrors to grant me brief moments of freedom. That is no life for you. What if we break the curse? You said it's possible. I said it theoretically exists. Trust freely given and accepted. I have spent 3 centuries unable to achieve the latter part of that equation. Maybe you just needed the right person. He cupped her face in both hands, his expression aching. Do not give me hope. Hope has been my enemy for longer than you have been alive. Every time I think perhaps this could be different, perhaps this person could be the one, I remember Katerina's laughter and I cannot make myself believe. Then we'll take it slow, Diana said. I'll come back tomorrow and dance. You'll come out. We'll spend time together. No pressure, no expectations, just getting to know each other. And maybe eventually you'll be able to trust again. And if I cannot, if I am too broken to be fixed, then at least you'll have had some moments out of the mirror, some conversations, some companionship. That's better than nothing, isn't it? Percival searched her face, crimson eyes intense. Why would you do this? You owe me nothing. You could walk away right now and never return. Because I don't want to walk away, Diana said simply. Because you're interesting and complicated, and I want to know more. Because I've been alone for a long time, and maybe you have too. And maybe we could be alone together for a while. Is that enough of a reason? It is more than I deserve. Stop talking about what you deserve and tell me if you want this, if you want me to come back. Yes, Percival said, the word pulled from somewhere deep. God help me, yes. I want you to come back. I want more time with you. I want all the time I can steal before the curse takes me again. Dawn was approaching. Diana could see the first hints of gray touching the darkness outside the windows. They had perhaps 30 minutes left. She stood and pulled Percival to his feet, leading him back to the center of the ballroom. Dance with me again, she said, before you go. He drew her into his arms without hesitation, and they swayed together, no music playing this time, just the silence of the vast room and the sound of their breathing. Diana rested her head against his chest and tried not to think about how soon she would be alone again. I will think of you, Percival murmured against her hair. While I am trapped, I will remember this, your kindness, your courage, the way you taste. Stop making this harder. I cannot help it. I'm finding it very difficult to maintain my composure. Diana looked up at him and saw that his eyes were bright with unshed tears. She had not known vampires could cry. Don't forget me. When I come back tomorrow, remember who I am. I could not forget you if I tried. The light outside was growing stronger, pink and gold bleeding into the gray. Percival's form flickered slightly, becoming translucent at the edges. He swore softly in a language Diana did not recognize and pulled her into a fierce embrace. Tomorrow, he said urgently. Dance tomorrow, please. I will, I promise. He kissed her one last time, desperate and yearning, and then the light hit the windows and Percival dissolved in her arms like smoke. Diana stood alone in the center of the ballroom, her arms empty, her lips still tingling from his kiss. She turned to look at the mirror. Her reflection stared back at her, normal and solitary. But as she watched, another figure appeared in the glass behind her shoulder. Percival, looking as solid in reflection as he had been in reality moments before. He placed his hand against the inside of the glass, and Diana walked forward to press her palm against the matching spot on the outside. Tomorrow, she whispered. His lips moved in the mirror, forming the same word. Diana stood there for a long moment, hand against cold glass, looking at the vampire trapped on the other side. Then she stepped back, gathered her shoes and her bag, and left the ballroom as the full light of morning flooded through the windows. She returned that evening after the wedding, still in her work clothes, exhausted from a day of managing everything that could go wrong at a large event. The bride had been beautiful, the ceremony flawless, the reception exactly what the couple had dreamed of. Diana had solved 17 small crises and 3 large ones, ensured everyone was happy, and felt absolutely nothing but tiredness. Now, she stood in the empty ballroom again. The venue returned to silence after the chaos of celebration. Diana approached the mirror and saw Percival immediately, standing just on the other side of the glass as if he had been waiting. She pulled out her phone, connected it to the sound system, and selected a waltz. Then she walked to the center of the ballroom, closed her eyes, and began to dance. She thought about Percival's kindness, his hurt, the way he had kissed her like she mattered. She thought about 300 years of loneliness and isolation. She opened her heart to it, let herself feel the longing and the hope and the fear of disappointment. The emotions welled up, overwhelming and honest. The mirror rippled. Percival stepped through and crossed the distance between them in seconds, pulling Diana into his arms and spinning her into the dance without preamble. She laughed in delight and followed his lead, and they waltzed across the ballroom like they had been doing this for years instead of one single night. "You came back," he said, and his voice was full of wonder. "I promised." People break promises. I don't. They danced through 3 songs, barely speaking, just existing together in movement and music. When the last notes faded, they stood still in the center of the floor, neither wanting to let go. "How long do I have?" Percival asked. Diana checked her phone. "It's 8 p.m. Sunrise is around 6 a.m. 10 hours, maybe?" 10 hours. He said it like a prayer. "What shall we do with 10 hours? Talk. I want to know everything about you, and you can ask me anything you want." They settled on the floor again, backs against the wall, shoulders touching. Diana told him about her work, her apartment, her small life. Percival listened like every word mattered, asking questions and making observations that showed he was genuinely interested. He told her more about vampire politics, about the houses that had once made up his kingdom, about powers and abilities she had only encountered in fiction. "Can you turn into a bat?" she asked. "No, that is a myth." "Super strength?" "Yes. I could lift a carriage horse over my head when I was a young vampire. I assume I could do the same with an automobile now, though I have not tested it." "Drinking blood?" "Necessary. I can survive for weeks without it, but I become weak, and the hunger becomes maddening. When I ruled, I had willing donors. Humans who understood what I was and provided blood in exchange for money or protection, or sometimes simply the experience of it." Diana processed this. "Is it sexual, the biting?" "It can be. The act of feeding releases chemicals that cause pleasure in both parties, but it does not have to be sexual any more than eating food with someone has to be romantic." Percival glanced at her. "Why do you ask?" "Just trying to understand." "You're a vampire. That comes with specific needs. If we're going to spend time together, I should know what those are. If we manage to break the curse and I emerge permanently, I would need to feed approximately once a week. I would prefer willing donors, though finding them in the modern age might prove challenging. I have not attempted to navigate your current society." "We'll figure it out," Diana said. "If we break the curse, that's a pretty big if." "Yes." They talked until midnight, until Diana's phone battery was running low and her exhaustion was starting to catch up with her. Percival noticed her yawning and suggested she should go home and rest. "I don't want to waste your time," Diana protested. "You could never waste my time, and you will be no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." He helped her to her feet. "Go home, sleep. Come back tomorrow if you wish, but do not sacrifice your health for my sake." Diana looked up at him, at the genuine concern in his face. "You're very careful with me. You are precious. I would not damage you for anything." She kissed him soft and brief. "Tomorrow. I'll come earlier so we have more time. I will be here. I have nowhere else to go." Diana left reluctantly, looking back twice to see him standing in the center of the ballroom, watching her leave. In the parking lot, she sat in her car for 5 minutes, trying to process what was happening. She was falling for a cursed vampire who lived in a mirror. This was insane. This was impossible. This was the first time in years she had felt genuinely excited about something. The next week fell into a pattern. Diana would finish work and go to the Ashworth Estate ballroom. She had negotiated with the venue manager, claiming she needed to practice setups for future events, and paid a small fee for evening access. Every night she would dance, and every night Percival would emerge from the mirror to spend hours with her. They talked about everything. Percival was fascinated by the modern world, and Diana found herself explaining technology, politics, social changes, and cultural shifts. He absorbed it all with quick intelligence, making connections and asking insightful questions. In turn, he told her about history from a perspective no book could provide, first-hand accounts of centuries she had only read about. He told her about the first time he saw a train, watching it through the mirror as it thundered past the ballroom's windows in the 1800s, when the venue had been a private estate. He described seeing the first automobiles, the first airplanes, watching humanity advance in leaps and bounds while he remained static and unchanging. Diana told him about her grandmother, about the grief that still occasionally hit her out of nowhere. Percival listened and shared his own losses, people he had cared for who aged and died while he remained young. They compared sorrows and found comfort in being understood. On the fourth night, Diana brought her laptop and showed him movies. They watched a romantic comedy, and Percival was utterly baffled by the cultural references, but charmed by the concept of moving pictures. They watched a historical drama set in the 1700s, and Percival spent the entire time pointing out inaccuracies, though he admitted the costumes were reasonably well done. On the sixth night, they barely talked at all. They kissed instead, sprawled on the ballroom floor, exploring each other with increasing confidence. Percival kept his control tightly leashed, never pushing further than Diana indicated she wanted, but his desire was obvious. When dawn approached and he had to return to the mirror, they were both frustrated and wanting. "This is torture," Diana said, still breathing hard from kissing. "Knowing you have to leave right when things are getting interesting." "Agreed, though I am not certain how far things should go. I do not want to take advantage of you." "You're not. I'm a grown woman who knows what she wants." "What do you want?" Diana looked at him, at his disheveled white hair and swollen lips and eyes dark with want. "You. All of you. But not with a time limit, not knowing you'll vanish in 5 minutes. Then we must break the curse." "How? You still don't trust that this is real?" Percival's expression shuddered. "I am trying. You must believe me, I am trying. But 300 years of conditioning is difficult to overcome." "I know. I'm not blaming you. I just wish there was a faster way." He pulled her into his arms as the sun began to rise. "Keep dancing. Keep coming back. You are wearing down my defenses simply by being consistently, persistently kind. It is working. Slowly." "Slowly might not be fast enough. The venue is only rented for another 3 weeks. After that, I don't know if I'll be able to access this ballroom regularly." Percival went very still. 3 weeks. "Yes, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier. I've been trying to figure out a way around it, but the Ashworth estate is expensive and I can't afford to rent it on my salary." 3 weeks, he repeated, "and then you would be unable to free me. I could try to find other times, other events, or maybe we could move the mirror. Is it portable?" "The curse is tied to the mirror specifically. If it is moved, I do not know if I would move with it or simply cease to exist. I am afraid to test it." They stared at each other, the weight of the deadline suddenly very real. "We have to break the curse," Diana said, "before the 3 weeks are up. It's the only option." "I do not know if I can." "You have to try. Really try. Not just gradually getting more comfortable, but actively working to trust me." Percival's jaw clenched. "You are asking me to make myself vulnerable to someone I have known for less than 2 weeks, to override every survival instinct I have developed, to risk being betrayed again." "I'm not going to betray you." That is what Katerina said. The words hung between them like a wall. Diana felt anger flare in her chest. "I am not Katerina. I have been showing up every single night. I have been honest with you. I have asked for nothing except your company. What more do I need to do to prove I'm not her?" "I do not know," Percival said, and he sounded anguished. "I do not know what would be enough. The rational part of my mind knows you are different. The wounded part cannot stop waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the moment you reveal this has all been manipulation. That's not fair." "I know. I know it is not fair. I know I am asking you to be patient with damage that is not your fault. But I cannot simply decide to trust you because the deadline is approaching. Trust does not work that way." Dawn light hit the windows, and Percival began to fade. He reached for Diana desperately, but his hands passed through her, already more reflection than reality. "I am sorry," he said as he dissolved. "I am so sorry." Diana sat alone on the ballroom floor as the sun rose fully, tears streaming down her face. She was in love with him, completely, impossibly in love with a vampire who could not trust her enough to be saved, and she had 19 days to figure out how to fix 300 years of damage. She did not go back that night, or the next night. Diana told herself she needed space to think, to figure out a solution, but the truth was she was hurt and angry and scared. She was putting her heart on the line every single day, dancing with complete honesty, being vulnerable and open, and it still was not enough. On the third night, her phone rang at 2 in the morning. The number was unknown. Diana almost did not answer, but something made her pick up. Diana Grayson? The voice was male, cultured, with an accent similar to Percival's, but sharper. Who is this? My name is Lucian. I am, or was, one of Percival Thornwell's advisors before his imprisonment. I have been searching for him for 3 centuries. Imagine my surprise when I felt the curse weaken repeatedly over the past 2 weeks. Someone has been freeing him. That would be you, I assume. Diana sat up in bed, instantly alert. How did you get this number? I have resources. Answer the question. Are you the one dancing before the mirror? Yes. What do you want? To help. Percival was a good king and a better friend. His imprisonment was a political disaster that led to decades of war between the vampire houses. If there is any chance of freeing him permanently, I would like to assist. Diana's mind raced. You're a vampire? Obviously. Now, I understand the curse requires trust. Has Percival managed it yet? No. He's too damaged, and we're running out of time. The venue is only rented for another 16 days. Lucian swore creatively in what sounded like French. 16 days to undo 3 centuries of trauma. Wonderful. Have you tried simply talking to him about it? Of course I've tried talking to him. He knows intellectually that I'm different from the woman who cursed him, but he can't make himself believe it emotionally. Yes, that sounds like Percival. Logical to a fault, which makes emotional healing nearly impossible for him. Lucian was quiet for a moment. I may have an idea. It is risky and potentially painful for both of you, but it might work. I'm listening. The curse feeds on his inability to trust. But what if we forced a situation where trust is the only option? Where he has to choose, in a moment of crisis, whether to believe you or doubt you? Diana's stomach clenched. That sounds like a terrible idea. It is, but we are out of good ideas and running out of time. Meet me tomorrow night at the ballroom. Bring Percival out and I will explain in person. How do I know you're not going to make things worse? How do I know you're really his friend? You do not. You have to trust me. Lucian's laugh was dry. Ironic, is it not? I am asking you to do the very thing Percival cannot. Diana thought about 16 days, about Percival trapped in the mirror forever, about never seeing him again. Fine. Tomorrow night. But if you hurt him, I will find a way to make you regret it. Noted. 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Lucian hung up. Diana stared at her phone, wondering what she had just agreed to. The next evening, Diana danced and Percival emerged, looking haggard. You did not come back. I thought perhaps you had given up on me. I needed time to think, and I found help. Diana explained about Lucian's phone call. Percival's expression cycled through shock, hope, and fear. Lucian is alive? After all this time? Apparently, he says he's been searching for you. If it is truly him, then yes, he would search. He was my closest friend, my most trusted advisor. Percival ran a hand through his hair. But what if it is a trick? What if someone learned of my imprisonment and is using his name to gain access? That's a possibility. But we're out of options and out of time. We have to try. At 9 p.m. exactly, the ballroom door opened and a man walked in. He was tall and lean, with dark hair pulled back in a low ponytail and eyes that glowed amber in the candlelight. He moved with predatory grace, and Diana's hindbrain screamed danger before her rational mind could catch up. Percival went very still, staring at the newcomer. Lucian? Hello, old friend. Lucian crossed the ballroom and stopped a respectful distance away. You look remarkably well for someone who's been trapped in a mirror for 3 centuries. You look exactly the same as the last time I saw you. Vampires tend to do that. Lucian turned to Diana. You must be Miss Grayson. Thank you for agreeing to meet. You said you had a plan. More of a gambit, really. Percival, I am going to threaten Diana's life. You will have to choose whether to believe she is genuinely trying to help you, or whether this is an elaborate setup, and I am working with her to betray you. Your decision in that moment, made under pressure, will either break the curse or confirm it permanently. Silence. Absolutely not, Percival said flatly. I will not risk her life for an experiment. It would not be a real threat, Lucian said. I have no intention of actually harming her, but you would not know that. You would have to decide in the moment whether Diana has earned your trust or whether she is another Katerina. Diana's heart was pounding. This is insane. Yes, but effective if it works. Lucian looked at Percival. You have spent 300 years analyzing your failure to see Katerina's betrayal. You have convinced yourself you cannot read people accurately. This would force you to trust your instincts again, to make a choice based on what you know of Diana rather than what you fear from your past. And if I choose wrong, if I decide she has betrayed me, then the curse becomes permanent and you remain in the mirror forever, Lucian said calmly. Those are the stakes, which is why this must be your decision. Percival, I will not do this without your consent. Percival looked at Diana, his expression tortured. I cannot ask you to do this. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Diana was terrified, but she kept her voice steady. 16 days, Percival. 16 days, and then the venue leases up and I lose access. We have to try something. This could destroy everything. Or it could save you. Either way, we'll know. Percival closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was resignation and determination in equal measure. If we do this, we do it now, before I lose my nerve. Lucian nodded. Diana, go stand by the mirror. Percival, stay in the center of the ballroom. Diana walked to the mirror on shaking legs. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and frightened. Lucian moved to stand beside her, and Diana saw him produce a knife from somewhere. The blade was silver, etched with symbols she did not recognize. This blade is cursed, Lucian said, his voice carrying across the ballroom. One cut and Diana will begin to die, slowly, painfully. The only cure is vampire blood freely given. Percival, if you choose to believe Diana has betrayed you, you will not give your blood, and she will die. If you choose to trust her, you will save her life, and the curse will break. Are you ready? No, Percival said, but do it anyway. Lucian moved faster than Diana could track, the knife slashing across her forearm before she could react. Pain flared, sharp and hot, and Diana cried out. Blood welled from the cut, too much blood, and the edges of the wound turned black immediately. The curse is spreading, Lucian said clinically. She has perhaps 10 minutes before it reaches her heart. Percival, what do you believe? Is this real or theater? Is Diana genuinely trying to help you, or has this all been a manipulation to hurt you worse than Katerina ever did? Diana looked across the ballroom at Percival. He was frozen, his face a mask of agony and indecision. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, centuries of damage fighting against weeks of connection. Please, she whispered. Her arm was burning, the black spreading up toward her shoulder. Please, Percival, I'm not her. I would never hurt you. That's exactly what a manipulator would say, Lucian pointed out. How can you be certain, Percival? What evidence do you have that Diana is different? She has known you for barely 2 weeks. She could be anyone. She could have planned this from the beginning, waiting for you to care so the betrayal would hurt more. Stop, Percival said hoarsely. Stop talking. 5 minutes, Lucian said. The curse is accelerating. Decide. Diana's legs gave out and she slid down the wall, cradling her blackened arm. The pain was excruciating, radiating through her entire body. She looked at Percival and saw him take 1 step toward her, then stop. I do not know, he said, and his voice broke. I do not know if this is real. Then I'm going to die, Diana said. Tears streamed down her face, but she kept her eyes on him. I'm going to die, and you're going to be trapped in that mirror forever, because you can't trust what your heart is telling you. Look at me, Percival. Really look at me. Have I ever lied to you? Have I ever asked you for anything except time? Have I ever tried to manipulate or use you? No. But Katerina did not either, until the moment she did. I am not Katerina, Diana screamed it, pouring every ounce of conviction she had into the words. I dance in front of your mirror because I want to see you. I spend hours talking to you because I care about you. I am falling in love with you, you impossible, damaged, beautiful man, and if you let me die because you can't see that, then you deserve to be alone forever." Percival made a sound like a wounded animal. 3 minutes, Lucian said quietly. Diana's vision was starting to blur at the edges. The black had spread to her chest, creeping toward her heart. She could feel her pulse becoming erratic. "It's okay," she said, though it was not okay at all. "I understand. I know what she did to you. I know you're trying." "Diana, please stop being understanding. Be angry. Tell me I'm a coward." "You're not a coward. You're hurt. There's a difference." Percival crossed the ballroom in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside her. He grabbed her face in both hands, his crimson eyes searching hers desperately. "Tell me this is real. Tell me you are not using me." "I am not using you. I swear on everything I have, on my grandmother's memory, on my own life, I am not using you. I care about you. I want you free. I want a future with you." Diana's words were slurring, her heart stuttering. "Please believe me." 2 minutes, Lucian said. Percival looked at the black spreading across her skin, at her face growing pale, at the life draining out of her eyes. Diana saw the moment his decision crystallized, saw him choose, not with his head, but with his heart. "I believe you," he whispered, then louder to Lucian. "I believe her. I trust her. She is not Katerina. She is Diana, and she is real, and I choose to accept that." He bit his own wrist, fangs appearing for the first time Diana had seen, and pressed the bleeding wound to her lips. "Drink, please, drink." Diana swallowed the blood flowing into her mouth. It tasted like copper and something darker, but warmth immediately spread through her chest. The black began to recede, pulled back by whatever magic lived in vampire blood. Within seconds, the curse was gone entirely, leaving only the knife wound, which was already healing. The ballroom shook. The mirror exploded. Glass shattered outward in a wave, but instead of falling to the floor, it dissolved into glittering dust that swirled through the air like snow. The dust spiraled around Percival, sinking into his skin, and he gasped as if struck. Light poured from him, brilliant and blinding, and when it faded he was standing fully in the ballroom, more solid and real than Diana had ever seen him. "The curse is broken," Lucian said with satisfaction. "Well done, old friend." Percival was staring at his hands in wonder. "I can feel it. The pull is gone. I am free." He looked up at Diana, his expression transforming into pure joy. "I am free." Then he noticed the blood on her arm, the torn fabric of her sleeve, and his expression shifted to horror. "God, what did I do? I let you be hurt. I almost let you die." "But you didn't," Diana said. She was shaking with relief and adrenaline. "You chose to trust me. That's what matters." Percival pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. You should not have had to prove yourself that way." "It worked, though. You're free." "At what cost?" "You were terrified. You were dying. I'm fine now. Your blood healed me." Lucian cleared his throat. "As touching as this is, we should discuss next steps. Percival, you've been out of vampire society for 3 centuries. The political landscape has changed drastically. You will need to be brought up to speed." Percival did not release Diana, but he looked at his old friend. "Is there even still a vampire society? I watched the courts fall apart. They reformed. Different structure, different leadership, but yes, we still exist. Some of us never stopped looking for you. Others assumed you were dead. Your return will cause quite a stir. I do not care about politics. I care about making sure Diana is safe. She will be safe. You can protect her now that you are free." Lucian's expression gentled. "I am glad you found someone worthy of your trust, and I am glad I was wrong about what I said during the test. She clearly cares for you." "You were not entirely wrong," Diana admitted. "We have only known each other 2 weeks. I could be anyone. But you are not. You are someone who was willing to die to save him. That speaks more loudly than months of time together ever could." Lucian moved toward the door. "I will give you 2 some privacy. Percival, call me when you are ready to discuss reintegrating into vampire society. Diana, it was a pleasure to meet you. Try not to make a habit of nearly dying." He left, moving with that inhuman speed. And then Diana and Percival were alone in the ballroom, surrounded by the settling dust of the destroyed mirror. "How do you feel?" Diana asked. Strange. Untethered. I've been bound to that mirror for so long, I forgot what it felt like to simply exist without the pull of it. Percival helped her to her feet, his hands gentle on her waist. Grateful, terrified, in love with you, which I realize is absurd given the timeline, but seems to be true nonetheless. Diana's heart skipped. Say that again. Which part? The love part. I am in love with you, Diana Grayson. Madly, completely, impossibly in love with you. You freed me from my prison and from my fear. You saw me at my worst and chose to stay. You almost died to prove your trustworthiness to me, which was both the bravest and most foolish thing I have ever witnessed. Percival cupped her face in his hands. I do not deserve you, but if you will have me, I would very much like to spend the rest of your life trying to be worthy of what you have given me. The rest of my life? Diana's voice came out breathless. That's all you're offering? I would offer eternity, but I will not ask you to become a vampire unless you wish it. Your life is yours to live as you choose. Diana considered this. What if I wanted eternity? What if I wanted to be with you for as long as possible? Percival went very still. That is a decision that should not be made lightly. Becoming a vampire means leaving behind your humanity, your ability to age naturally, your mortality. It means blood and hunger and living in shadows. I would never ask that of you. You're not asking. I'm offering, not right now, Diana added quickly. I need time to think about it, to understand what it really means, but I want the option. I want the possibility of forever with you. Then you shall have it, when and if you decide you want it. Percival kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. For now we have time, real time, without curses or deadlines or mirrors. What shall we do with it? Diana thought about her studio apartment, her job as a wedding planner's assistant, her small, careful life. Then she thought about adventure and possibility, and a vampire who looked at her like she had hung the moon. Everything, she said. Let's do everything. They started small. Percival needed to acclimate to the modern world, so Diana became his guide. She showed him how to use a smartphone, how to navigate the internet, how to order food delivery and use public transportation. He was a quick study, though he found some modern conveniences baffling and others delightful. They went on dates, normal human dates, coffee shops and museums and walks through the park at night when Percival could move freely without worrying about sunlight. Diana introduced him to movies and television shows. Percival introduced her to classical music concerts and art galleries, moving through those spaces with the knowledge of someone who had watched culture evolve across centuries. He told her about feeding, explaining that he would need blood regularly now that he was free and active. Diana offered her own, but Percival refused initially. I will not take from you unless you are absolutely certain. The act creates a bond. It is intimate in ways that go beyond the physical. I want to be bonded to you, Diana said. They were in her apartment 3 weeks after the curse broke, and she had been thinking about this constantly. I want that intimacy. Percival searched her face, looking for doubt or fear. Finding none, he nodded slowly. If you are certain. He bit carefully, fangs sinking into her wrist, and Diana gasped at the sensation. It did not hurt. Instead, waves of pleasure radiated from the bite, spreading through her entire body. She could feel Percival's hunger, his gratitude, his love through the connection. When he pulled back, his eyes were glowing crimson, and his expression was reverent. You taste like starlight, he murmured, licking the wound closed, like everything good I thought I had lost forever. Diana felt dizzy and satisfied and connected to him in a way that went beyond words. Do that again sometime. As often as you wish. Lucian proved to be helpful in navigating Percival's return to vampire society. There were meetings with house leaders, negotiations about power structures, debates about what role, if any, a former king should play in modern politics. Percival handled it all with diplomatic grace, making it clear he had no interest in ruling again, but was willing to serve as an advisor or mediator. Diana attended some of these meetings at Percival's request and found herself navigating a world of supernatural politics that was simultaneously fascinating and terrifying. Vampires, she learned, were dramatic and intense and valued honor and history above almost everything else. They treated her with cautious respect as Percival's chosen partner, though she could tell some of them were skeptical about a human in their midst. 6 months after the curse broke, Percival asked Diana to move in with him. He had acquired a penthouse apartment in the city, all dark wood and leather furniture, and windows that could be completely blacked out during the day. Diana gave up her studio without hesitation. 1 year after the curse broke, Percival proposed, not with a ring but with an offer. Become his wife in human terms and his bonded mate in vampire terms, a partnership recognized by both worlds. Diana said yes before he finished asking. They were married in the Ashworth Estate Ballroom, the venue where they had first met. The mirror was gone, replaced by an enormous arrangement of white roses. The guest list was an eclectic mix of Diana's human friends and family and Percival's vampire contacts. Lucian served as best man and gave a speech about trust and second chances that left half the guests in tears. Diana wore a dress the color of starlight. Percival wore black and silver, his white hair braided back, looking every inch the vampire king he had once been. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising partnership and protection and love for as long as they both existed. The reception featured a waltz naturally. Percival led Diana across the ballroom floor where she had once danced alone, and this time she was surrounded by people celebrating their joy instead of isolated in her loneliness. "Happy?" Percival murmured as they spun together. "Absurdly so. You?" "I did not think I could be this happy again. You proved me wrong." 2 years after the curse broke, Diana made her decision about eternity. She had researched thoroughly, talked to other vampires about their experiences, understood exactly what she would be giving up and gaining. When she told Percival she was ready, he took her hands and asked one more time if she was absolutely certain. "I want forever with you," Diana said. "I want to see what the world becomes. I want to be your partner in every sense. I'm certain." The turning was painful, but Percival held her through it, his blood mingling with hers, rewriting her humanity into something new. Diana died and was reborn over the course of 3 days, emerging with fangs and strength and hunger and a connection to Percival that went soul deep. When she opened her eyes for the first time as a vampire, the world looked different, sharper, clearer, full of colors and scents she had never noticed before. And Percival was there, smiling at her with such love it made her chest ache. "Welcome to eternity," he said. 5 years after the curse broke, Diana and Percival stood in the Ashworth Estate Ballroom once more. The venue had been purchased by a vampire house friendly to Percival and was now used for supernatural gatherings rather than human events. Tonight, it was hosting a celebration, the formal recognition of Percival and Diana's bonding by the Vampire Council. The ballroom was full of vampires, all dressed in their finest. Diana wore deep burgundy, her now white hair falling in waves past her shoulders. Percival stood beside her in his customary black, his hand warm in hers. "Are you nervous?" he asked quietly. "Should I be?" They can be rather intimidating when they want to be. Diana looked around the ballroom, at the vampires who had once seemed so alien and frightening. Now she was one of them, accepted and respected in her own right. She had found her place in this world, not as Percival's human accessory, but as a vampire in her own power, working alongside him to bridge human and vampire relations. "I'm not nervous," she said. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The ceremony was formal and elaborate, full of ritual and tradition. When it concluded, the gathering shifted into celebration. Music played, the same classical waltzes Diana had fallen in love with years ago. Vampires danced with the grace and precision of centuries of practice. Percival led Diana onto the floor, and they moved together perfectly, 2 parts of a whole. She thought about the lonely woman who had danced alone in this ballroom, aching for connection. She thought about the cursed king who had watched from a mirror, believing he would never touch anything real again. "What are you thinking about?" Percival asked. "How far we've come. How improbable this all is." Improbable, but perfect. They danced until dawn, until the other guests began to leave, until only Lucian remained, watching them with fond amusement. "You two are disgustingly happy," he observed. "Yes," Percival agreed. "We are." "Good. You deserve it, old friend." Lucian raised his glass in a toast. to trust, to love, to second chances. They raised their own glasses and drank. Later, as Diana and Percival walked home through the city streets in the pre-dawn darkness, Diana thought about the future stretching before them. Centuries of it, eternity together, facing whatever came with partnership and love. "Do you ever regret it?" Percival asked suddenly. "Giving up your human life for this?" Diana looked at him, at the vampire who had stepped out of a mirror to dance with her, who had chosen to trust her when trust seemed impossible, who loved her with an intensity that still took her breath away. "Not for a single second," she said. They walked home together as the sun began to rise, casting long shadows across the pavement, but they were safe now, together, free from curses and loneliness and the fear of connection. Diana reached for Percival's hand, and he took it without hesitation, their fingers intertwining as naturally as breathing. The ballroom where they had met was behind them now, a memory and a monument. But the dance continued, would continue for as long as they existed. Two people who had been alone finding completeness in each other, waltz steps across centuries, together in all the ways that mattered. Diana had danced alone in an empty ballroom, her heart open and aching with loneliness. A vampire king had stepped out of a mirror to join her, bringing with him centuries of pain and the cautious hope for healing. They had found each other in that moment, two broken pieces fitting together to create something whole and strong and beautiful. Now they walked into forever, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. The dance would continue, the music would play, and they would face it all together. Trust hard won, love freely given, a future full of possibility stretching endlessly before them. In the end, that was enough. That was everything. That,